Faint temple bells, car horns, street vendors calling out, loud chattering in the background. India, home to the world's oldest and most progressive educational religion, Hinduism. Let's talk about something that rarely makes the headlines. India isn't just a country with high literacy drive or an engineering talent surplus. It's the sound of Sanskrit echoing through satellite control rooms. It's a grandmother chanting mantras while her grandson codes an app for Silicon Valley. It's a barefoot farmer praying before harvest and a billionaire worshipping at a temple before closing a $1 billion deal. India is the house of the world's oldest and most progressive educational religion. Here's what I mean by that. For over 3,000 years, learning in India has been sacred. The Gurukul system wasn't just about memorizing mantras, it was a residential ecosystem for character building, philosophy, logic, astronomy, medicine, music, and ethics. The teacher wasn't a lecturer, he or she was a guru. A guru, which literally means the remover of darkness, a word so popular in the globalized world today, a word borrowed from ancient India. The Vedas, Upanishads, and Nalanda University traditions promoted something radical for their time: open inquiry, debate as pedagogy, multidisciplinary thinking, and perhaps most importantly, the spiritual right to ask why. So today on Anthropologically Yours, we ask what happens when the world's most emotionally intelligent civilization becomes a global economic superpower. Not just GDP, not just startups, but leadership, culture, moral complexity, and the unapologetic belief that chaos is not failure, it's intelligence, too wild to tame. Talk about Nalanda, 5th century CE, and Takshashila, as early as 6th century BCE, weren't just schools. They were global universities before the word university even existed in Europe. They attracted students from China, Korea, Tibet, Persia, and Greece, centuries before Oxford or Harvard were even conceived. And what were they learning? Grammar and mathematics, medicine and surgery, political science and ethics, logic, linguistics, and Buddhist philosophy, all under one roof, with no caste or nationality barriers in who could learn, centuries before the Western world began dreaming of liberal arts. Even today, this mindset continues. India produces more STEM graduates per year than most countries combined. But what's less discussed is the deeper cultural truth. In India, education is not a transaction, it's a transformation, which starts from every family, every household, no matter how rich or poor they are. That's why students still touch their teachers' feet. That's why Saraswati, the goddess of wisdom, is worshipped with the same reverence as power and wealth. It's a worldview where knowledge isn't just for career, it's for clarity, for character, for karmic responsibility. So when we talk about India leading in global tech or sending satellites to Mars on a shoestring budget, remember this. It's not just the result of policy, it's the outcome of a civilization that sees learning as a sacred duty, a religion of curiosity, an inheritance of ideas. India isn't just literate. It's philosophically educated, And that's what makes its rise so deeply rooted and so globally relevant. It is one of the few places on earth where the ancient and algorithm coexist without conflict. This brings me to talk about a very important segment of my podcast today: caste versus class, when diversity is law and not a slogan. See, the globalized West is strategizing today, heavily strategizing, spending millions of dollars and pounds into their government committees, strategizing for the DEI policy. In India, it's a constitutional law. Since 1950, not today, since 1950, India has reserved seats in parliament, education, and jobs for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward classes. And not just that, it has quota system. The quotas in educational institutions and government jobs allocated to universities from economically weaker sections, EWS, of society. It's messy sometimes, yes. It's controversial, it has its own loopholes. But it's a real structural reform. A reform that will take decades for the most developed countries in the world to implement. Meanwhile, Silicon Valley debates whether diversity lowers the bar. Well, there are pros and cons to that as well, but at least it's there. Anthropologist A.R. Vasavi points out that caste hasn't vanished, it's evolved. Yet Dalit tech CEOs, tribal civil servants, and intercaste marriages are breaking invisible barriers every day. Where the globalized world preaches representation, India legislated it. Pluralism isn't performative here, it's a policy. Let's talk about dharma, disruption, and the rise of a superpower, a cultural capital with the guts to lead, and that is India. See, a country is often measured by its GDP, AI breakthroughs, or unicorn startups. Trust me, India has them all, but there's another currency India has mastered: cultural capital. This is a country where a tea seller can quote a Bhagavad Gita, a domestic worker will fast for moral penance, and a rickshaw driver might spend his last coin to feed a stranger. Yes, India struggles with inequality, chaos, and bureaucracy, but under all that noise lies a quiet architecture of values, ethics, harmony, and dharma. There's a lot to learn for leadership from here. It's philosophical, historic, and spiritual to the core. Its leadership rises from temples, street corners, grandmothers, and village councils. India's earliest leaders weren't in parliament, they were serving chai while running a household of 15. They are the mothers. And today they are on space missions, in boardrooms, and leading nations. In anthropological terms, India is one of the last living civilizations where moral infrastructure still holds the social fabric, even when the economic one fails. Let's stop calling India a developing country. That's outdated vocabulary for a civilization that's already running on parallel timelines. From grassroots to global summits, India is now shaping the world's climate policies, AI ethics, and diplomatic equations, not as a follower but as a negotiator, a builder, a player. And technology. India skipped the slow lanes long ago. India didn't just digitize, it philosophized its digital rollout. Talk about Aadhaar, UPI, DigiLocker, India Stack. These weren't designed as surveillance tools, they were built to give visibility to the invisible. From UPI to Chandrayaan, from Digital India to data localization, It's not just catching up, it's leapfrogging. Ask Silicon Valley who their engineers are. Ask London who's leading their healthcare data. Ask the world who's building the next 100 unicorns. It's called techno-nationalism, where India became the first digital dharma state. And culture, still intact. Still intoxicating, but intact. In a world drowning in algorithmic sameness, India offers meaning, not just content. Its movies carry mythology, its rituals carry history, its chaos carries character. And then there's dharma, the deepest layer of all. You won't find it in policy papers, but it's in how Indians lead companies, raise families, and vote. A moral operating system passed down from millennia through generations. Irrespective of class and caste, it's the choices, conduct, and conscience. From yoga to Vedanta, breathwork to Ayurveda, India gave the world not just mindfulness but entire systems of inner regulations, thousands of years before neuroscience caught up. The global wellness economy is worth over $4.5 trillion, and yet much of it is commodified wisdom borrowed from Indian streets and scriptures. And here's the wild part. In India, even the poorest observe rituals. They fast, chant, offer flowers, and believe. Spiritual wealth exists independent of economic status. And everywhere else in the world, you pay a therapist to breathe. In India, your grandmother, your mother teaches you that for free. This brings me to the next segment of my podcast, where I'm going to talk about India's cultural machinery, how art, myth, and memory shape a civilization. When we talk about India's global power, we often focus on GDP, engineering talent, or software exports. But what we often miss is one of India's oldest and most powerful systems of influence: its art, its culture, its stories. India is the only surviving ancient civilizations where rituals, performance, and mythology are still part of everyday life, not just in the history books. Let's talk numbers. India produces over 2,000 films a year in more than 20 languages, making it the world's largest film industry. According to FICCI EY 2023, the Indian media and entertainment industry is expected to cross 2.3 trillion rupees by 2025, with regional cinema and music growing faster than national TV. Even devotional music, bhajans, qawwalis, Carnatic ragas, has a multi-billion rupee streaming base, showing how sacred forms adapt to Spotify algorithms without losing their soul. But this cultural machinery isn't just for entertainment. It's memory transmission, it's national pedagogy, it's soft power. From the ancient Natya Shastra, that's India's 2,000-year-old treatise on performing arts, to contemporary dance dramas based on the Mahabharata in Kerala and Manipur, Indian art has always fused aesthetic with ethics. Anthropologist Rachel Dyer explains that Indian cinema doesn't merely reflect society, it shapes collective morality. The hero isn't just charming, he's dharmic. Family isn't just a subplot, it's the sacred nucleus. Even today, political campaigns are styled like film trailers. Leaders echo cinematic tropes. Speeches mimic scripts. The funeral of a superstar like M.G. Ramchandran once shut down Tamil Nadu for a week, not because he was just an actor, but because he had become a defied figure. From ancient cave murals at Ajanta to Instagram's devotional reels, India's culture soul constantly evolves while remaining ancient. And that is what the world often misunderstands. Where Hollywood builds superheroes, India's cultural industry builds symbols of justice, devotion, sacrifice, and transcendence. Where Western pop culture often glorifies individuality, Indian narratives still center around collective identity, intergenerational duty, and moral complexity. India tells a lot of stories of art and culture, but it also encodes civilization. Through textbooks, yes, but also in temples, through songs, through the saris they wear, the stage plays, and the heart of 1.4 billion people. Now let's talk about something really, really interesting. The Bhagavad Gita. It is not just a scripture, but a survival guide. Before we wrap up this journey into India's leadership, tech, and cultural power, I want to shift the lens a bit. Because if we are really talking about what makes India different, we can't ignore one of its most enduring and surprisingly relevant contributions to global thought. It's not a policy, it's not a platform, it's a book, the Bhagavad Gita. Arguably the most timeless Indian guide to leadership, ethics, decision-making, and self-awareness we have ever seen. Let's break it down. When people hear Bhagavad Gita, they think religion, but this isn't just a sacred text. It's a conversation about what to do when life gets hard, really hard. The setting isn't peaceful. It's a battlefield. A warrior, Arjuna, is overwhelmed. He's spiraling, he's anxious, he's questioning everything. His role, his purpose, his identity. Sounds familiar, right? It happens with all of us. It's what so many of us feel today, facing burnout, moral confusion, or big life decisions. And what does Krishna do? His charioteer. He doesn't give orders. He doesn't say just toughen up. He talks about purpose, about detachment, about clarity, about aligned action. He says things we now teach in leadership programs and therapy offices under different names: cognitive reframing, value-based action, emotional regulation, purpose-led leadership. And then comes the most powerful line of all. I have given you the knowledge. Now reflect on it and act as you wish. No pressure, no guilt, no manipulation. Just a moment of stillness in the middle of war. A moment where wisdom doesn't tell you what to do, but how to find the answer in yourself. That's why the Gita is studied in many business schools, at Harvard Business Schools, at MIT, in military training, and by coaches, executives, and philosophers. Because it's not just spiritual, it's strategic. It's deeply strategic. It teaches us how to lead ourselves, and in a world of noise and crisis, that might be the most underrated skill of all. So whether you are Indian or not, religious or not, believer or skeptic, the Gita still asks you the most important question. Are you acting from fear or from truth? Because real wisdom doesn't control you, it frees you. And that to me is the most Indian form of leadership there is. This was Anthropologically Yours. I am Rashmi, and if you have ever wondered why India, for all its contradictions, still feels deeply, unmistakably alive, it's because it hasn't traded its soul for speed. It builds satellites, yes, but still lights a lamp before takeoff. It codes in Python but consults the Panchang before marriage. It leads in AI but doesn't forget the wisdom of oral traditions passed from a grandmother to child. India is proof that a society can move fast without losing meaning. That innovation and ethics don't have to be at war. That culture isn't a costume, it's a compass. So maybe the real question isn't, is India the next superpower? Maybe it's this. What if the future belongs to the civilization that remembers who it is while building what comes next? Maybe the future isn't global. Maybe it's just simply Eastern. Maybe it's integrally Indian. Thank you. See you next time.